Hello, and welcome to Childless Not by Choice. This podcast was created for and about the childless not by choice community on a global level. Before we get started, I would like to thank my sponsors and supporters. Thank you, Morgan Air Conditioning, Sales, Service, and Installation, serving Tampa, Florida, and the surrounding areas. Morgan Air Conditioning can be reached by calling 813-500-7765. That's 813-500-7765. Or their web address is www.morganair.net. That's www.morganair.net. Along with a stellar business reputation in the Tampa, Florida area, Morgan Air Conditioning is also known and well received for giving back to the community, whether it is back to school drives or donating services to the less fortunate. Thank you, Morgan Air Conditioning, for recognizing the vision of Childless Not by Choice and being a part of it. Next, I would like to thank Alba Digital Media for creating my website, www.childlessnotbychoice.net. That's www.childlessnotbychoice.net, and for producing this podcast. Alba Digital Media's clients include those who need website building and maintenance, as well as those like myself who require professional podcast editing. Their client base reflects many industries and levels of needs for professional assistance. To contact Alba Digital Media for your web building and podcast production needs, visit www.albadigitalmedia.com. That's www.albadigitalmedia.com. Thank you, Alba Digital Media, for making me look good and sound good. Finally, I would like to thank Devoted, the musical duo who created my theme music. Thank you, Devoted, for your beautiful music. Devoted has had the opportunity to sing and play in many countries. To contact Devoted for your music needs, visit devotedministries@gmail.com. That's devotedministries@gmail.com. And if you would like to become a one-time or ongoing sponsor, or if you would like to become a patron of Childless Not by Choice, please contact me at Civilla at civillamorgan.com. That's Civilla@civillamorgan.com for details. Now, on to the show. So, should I be hearing anything in here?
Yeah, you should.
Okay. No, I mean like ambient noise.
Well, hopefully not. I'll try to keep some of that out. If you want some, I can turn another headphone or microphone.
I mean, ambient is fine. It's just like I hear. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
You're doing fine.
Okay.
Are you comfortable? You want me to help you scoot your chair or anything?
Come
on, I'm a gentleman. Yeah, you can move this all you want. Make it as comfortable.
But is it, okay. All right, now I hear my voice. Oh my gosh, do I want to hear my voice? And I'm hearing me more in my left ear.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know, I'm hearing more in my left ear than my right ear. Is that okay?
It's all mono, it doesn't matter. It's just
okay. Okay.
So,
I think I'm fine.
Okay, well, we're already recording, so we'll just give yourself 2 seconds of silence.
Hello everybody, Civilla Morgan here. Welcome back to Childless Not by Choice, where my mission is to recognize and speak to the broken hearts of childless not by choice women and men around the world. I'm spreading the great news that we can live a joyful, relevant, and fulfilled life, although we did not have the children we so wanted. Well, as we continue on here, I want to thank my Patreon contributor. Patreon contributors are those who have taken an interest in my platform, whether they fit the childless not by choice demographic or not. They have decided to contribute a certain dollar amount on a regular basis to help fund my dream of creating awareness and conversation for the childless not by choice community globally. Click the Patreon link for details and to become a patron. And the link is right there in the show notes. And I want to thank Jordan Morgan, who has been a long-time patron. I really appreciate your patronage, Jordan. I always tell you every penny of what you contribute is going right back into the platform, to the podcast. And so you are truly appreciated. Thank you so much, Jordan Morgan. Well, by the time you hear this episode, I will be back home from my first time attending a podcast movement convention. It's a convention for podcasters and would-be podcasters. Podcast Movement 2018 is being held in Philadelphia, PA this year. Technically, it's my first visit in person, but my voice went to Podcast Movement 2017, which was held in Anaheim, California, as I was asked to do voiceover at the award ceremony that they had there. So if you hear the ambient noise, that's me sitting smack dab in the middle of Podcast Movement and recording this episode. So this is day 2 of the convention. I had to make sure I had coffee and then water to make sure I was coherent and that my voice sounded good. So I just gulped down a whole bottle of water. I would really definitely like to thank the people at Talkshoe for affording me the opportunity to record live from Podcast Movement 2018. Thank you, Talkshoe. And I would also like to thank the people at Heil. That's the microphone that I'm speaking on and the headphones that I have on right now. So Heil, H-E-I-L, microphones, headphones, pertinent audio, and sound gear. Thank you so much, Steve Stewart, podcast producer, director of FinCon Podcast Network. You guys are truly appreciated. Well, if you've been listening to Childless Not by Choice for any length of time, you know how much I love the medium of podcasting, because it has allowed me to get the word out globally that we, the Childless Not by Choice community, we do exist in plain sight. I am blessed to be able to attend Podcast Movement 2018 as it adds another layer of learning and going to the next level in my commitment to you and to the craft that allows me to speak directly to you. Well, as the month of July comes to a close, so does my month-long celebration of 3 years of podcasting. The celebration may be coming to an end, but the joy in my heart because I get to give a voice to us and I get to encourage you, that will continue on. So thank you for celebrating with me this month. And part of the reason I'm here, big part of the reason that I'm here at Podcast Movement is to be sure to, of course, reach out and commiserate and get along with and touch base with and just, get to know other podcasters. There are thousands of different podcasters out there in just as many subject matters, but it's always good to get together with a group of people that are doing something similar to what you're doing, using the same equipment, different equipment, telling you why, etc. So I'm just really happy to be here. In fact, the only thing more cool is, now that the celebration is over, almost over. It's still July. What is this, the 24th? Another week in July. So the only thing really even cooler than being here is when I get to hear from you, when you've listened to an episode that helped you so much, like this message I received via DM recently. It says Facebook DM, Facebook Direct Messenger. It says, "Hi, Civilla. I was listening to your podcast episode 59, that's 59, on endometriosis. I was suffering from that horrible disease for years and years since I was 22 years old. I remember you told me that you noticed a turn for the better in my comments on Facebook. Well, I did some of the things that you talked about in the podcast. I went to talk therapy, got several medical opinions regarding the disease in my body, and I found a doctor that did the excision of adhesion surgery. And I've been great ever since! ! Only I haven't gotten pregnant, but at least I feel better. Talk to you later!" Unquote. And that's from TG. And when I read that, I was like, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. And as I read that message the first time, I was so touched by the timing. I tend to get a message or email like this right after I finish wondering if I'm really getting through to anyone. It never fails. So as I read it again, I started thinking about how my suggestions are based on personal experiences. Honestly, it's sometimes bittersweet as I sometimes look back on my experiences, and there are things I wish I had done or done differently. or things that I had known. But I can't dwell back there in the past, and neither can you. We must look ahead, face forward, even if we still feel immobilized by grief. We have to face forward in our immobilization. I hope that's a word. You guys know how I love to make words up. But immobilized or not, face forward. You can't look backward. One of my favorite quotes on the planet, it was said by Peter Lynch, who was one of the biggest mutual fund managers in history, and he said, "You can't see the future through the rearview mirror," and you can't. That's why it's one of my favorite quotes. You just cannot. If you try to look in the rearview mirror, you're gonna crash. And so, even though we feel like we can't go on, we have to at least face that direction, the go on direction. So, speaking of messages, here is another message I received just a couple of days ago from a Childless Not by Choice with Civilla Morgan Facebook group member. And she says, "I just listened to this podcast and I'm very grateful that something like this is available, for I wouldn't be around since experiencing becoming childless." Let that sink in. She goes on to say, "I also watched the YouTube video by Dr. Christina, and it hit the nail up about what I'm dealing with. I still have my down days, and I have not attended anything dedicated to children." And then in parentheses, she put, "Recently a baby dedication happened at church, which I saw ahead of time when it was going to happen, so I didn't go." End of parentheses. I know by listening to these podcasts will help encourage me to keep looking up and finding that acceptance to being childless. As I'm approaching a year of my surgery, I look at this from a different angle and now hope that churches see that this is a real deal and they should open their hearts to those of us who are not able to have children, so they can see we are as important, just like the mommies and daddies. Thank you, Civilla, for putting these together, for I know I am not alone, and even with tears falling, that I am loved and valuable, even though I can't have my own children." Unquote. And this message is, she's referring to episode 91 when she said she just finished listening to the episode. That's episode 91, where I'm celebrating 3 years of podcasting. And the YouTube video she is referring to, I will put the link in the show notes. That is a powerful video by a wonderful doctor who is childless not by choice. And I had reached out to this doctor on YouTube, and after watching her video, and I reposted her YouTube video into the Childless Not by Choice with Civilla Morgan Facebook group. And I also reached out to Dr. Christina, and so we've been in contact. So yes, we've been in contact. I'm actually working on an episode based on her suggestion, Dr. Christina's suggestion. I'm just so glad that this podcast is doing what I wanted it to do from day one, which is to reach the entire planet. It's just awesome. It's awesome what's happening here. So, those are notes that I just got recently within the last 2 weeks for the first note and the last 1 week for the second note. And, look, it is already difficult enough that grief comes in waves. And as we move along in our journey, the time between each wave can be longer than when we first realized we would not have children. In the beginning, the waves were seconds or minutes apart. Now they may be days and months apart. And yes, there are triggers. And the triggers are different for everyone. And triggers can bring a wave crashing into our peaceful surf. You guys know I have to bring up a beach analogy. But the fact is, yes, triggers can just crash into what we consider peace, even if it's a temporary peace or a peace that we're seeking. Triggers happen, and that's why they're called triggers, because we never know when they're going to happen. And so we kind of have to be on the lookout, but you don't want to have to be looking over your shoulder all the time. So then you have to know how to deal with the trigger. And I'm going to talk more about triggers in a future episode, because I think they're really important to make sure that we all understand that triggers are normal. They're normal. And if you've been through anything, we're dealing with childlessness. We've been through childlessness. That's our thing here. And so it's trauma for us. But there are all types of trauma out there. And with trauma come triggers. So I want you to not ignore your triggers, but do not allow them to run your life either. Recognize them, and then do what you must to manage them. And as I said, I'll speak more about in the future, more about triggers in the future and how to manage them. But just some, tips right now. See a therapist. Remember episode 88, where I interviewed licensed therapist Christy Jordan. Her contact information is in the show notes for that episode, and I'll be adding her information to the resource tab here on the website. So talk to a therapist. And I recently learned from one of the women in the group that there's actually a psychologist for childless, not by choice women. I mean, who knew? That's how important our segment of society is, and that's why we cannot hide in plain sight. We can't hide out. We've got to get the word out. And so, as you can tell, I'm really passionate about this. So I'm going to have one of those psychologists on for a future episode. So another thing you can do is talk to a trusted friend or a spiritual leader. Join a virtual community like ours, which is on the website at www.childlessnotbychoice.net, or search for a local area meetup with a positive spirit and vibe. It doesn't make sense to sit and chat with women who are also childless and come away from the conversation feeling even more depressed. So if you go to a meetup and you're just not feeling it, then find another one. So, I mean, you guys know me by now. You know. You don't have to. And I just created a hashtag on Twubs, a Twitter hashtag. It says, you don't have to. Hashtag, you don't have to. So, do what's best for you. Always do what's best for you. It's not bad or selfish to do what's best for you, because typically if you're doing what's best for you now while you're grieving, while you're dealing, you will not always have to do that thing. You will not always have to stay away from a shower, a baby shower. I don't go to baby showers. I don't go to church on Mother's Day, but those are my choices. Maybe your personality will allow you to when it's time. So I'm not saying never do these things. I'm saying right now, you don't have to. Hashtag, you don't have to. So, what else can you do? So the local area meetups, and remember, if you'd like to speak to me one-on-one, the instructions are on the shop tab on the website. So just go to the website, www.childlessnotbychoice.net, go to the shop tab and sign up to speak with me. There is a small fee, but that's just for my time, basically, for us to talk and for me to commiserate with you, let you know that I really do understand. And you can see a portion of my story on the Facebook group, so when you first sign up. And of course, I'm going to have some tips for you. Why else? I mean, we can talk, and talking helps, but I'm going to have some tips for you as well. So, go to the shop tab and sign up if you'd like to speak with me. Bottom line, there is nothing wrong with triggers. We are humans dealing with something that in most cases we did not think we would have to, especially when we are surrounded by family members who had multiple children with no problem. You know those people. They just popped it out one after the other. And and then there's us right in the middle. So, of course, remember, get a second opinion. That's another tip, like TG did in the above note that I read, the first note that I read. Second opinions are very important, especially if what the first opinion is suggesting is questionable in your mind or irreversible. This is why I say it so often. Get a second opinion. Getting a second opinion is not disrespectful. As a matter of fact, most doctors almost always expect you to do it when they give you a bad report. So please do not be afraid. You only have one body, and if they are talking hysterectomy, you only have one uterus. Review all of your options. It took me 10 years to come to the realization that my only option would be a hysterectomy. No doctor could convince me before I was ready. And they did try. That was the reason for my requesting a second opinion. A doctor who instantly suggested hysterectomy after my first visit. This was although he knew I had no children, and he knew I wanted children. I left his office and never went back. And my new OBGYN would be the one who stood by me as I waited, hoping to meet Mr. Right. It was only when I finally decided to have the hysterectomy that he advised me I would have an exponentially better quality of life. Of course, I did not care at that time. I was about to lose the ability to carry a baby, and none of it was fair. I felt good the morning of the surgery. I felt strong. I felt a little twinge of what have I done after the surgery, but honestly, it did not last long, that twinge. There was that moment I've told you guys about where I cried incessantly until I decided to visit a psychiatrist, but my OBGYN was right. My quality of life has gotten better exponentially. What I am saying is find a doctor you trust, review his or her findings, and make a decision. Don't blow things off, especially if a cancer diagnosis is involved. I did not have that diagnosis, so waiting around for Mr. Right for 10 years was uncomfortable, embarrassing, depressing, but cancer was not a part of my story. Bottom line, exercise common sense, have a say in your treatment, and do what is best for you. It is your body. And remember, if you do have a hysterectomy, there is a PDF on the resource tab for post-hysterectomy tips. I can't tell you why doctors do not tell their patients the practical things, like waiting a few weeks before wearing heels. Heels put pressure on your midsection that you do not feel until you have a surgery like that. Remember, they're cutting your entire midsection. They're cutting muscles. Your midsection is what's holding you up. So wearing heels is not good for the healing process, and you want to heal properly or you'll never heal properly. Wear loose clothing the first few days or weeks. I still cannot answer the question as to why I wore jeans with a belt to a doctor's appointment shortly after one of my several myomectomies, fibroid removal surgeries. Common sense. Things like these will help you heal faster. So check out the PDF list for more information. And once again, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate your listening and sharing and resharing these episodes. I mean, this is just so cool. And thanks for the notes. You guys help remind me I'm on the right track and I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons. And these episodes are helping you. And, you know, I'm glad you're in the group. Those of you who are in the Childless Not by Choice with Civilla Morgan Facebook group, or those of you who may not be childless but you want to know more about us, and so you're in the Childless Not by Choice with Civilla Morgan supporters group. Those of you who have subscribed to the newsletter, the monthly newsletter, thank you. Please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please come on in. I'm not going to send you a ton of emails like some companies do. You get an email every other day. I don't do that because I don't read all those emails. So come on in, join the conversation, the community. There's a community group on the website, www.childlessnotbychoice.net. And so there are many places for you to come on in, whether or not you're childless not by choice. The community, of course, is set up for women only who are childless not by choice. So there are segments of the platform that are for women only who are childless not by choice. But there are places, if you do not fit the demographic, if you have children but you want details and news and updates, come on and subscribe, join. Questions, DM me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening. Remember to check out the show notes. There's tons of information in there. And I'll talk to you again later. Bye.